Good Tuesday morning. It's Bishop on Air after a long holiday weekend where, gosh, I think Saturday and Sunday I put in close to 30 hours of work just those 2 days as the state legislature is now into extended session, taking advantage of those contingency days that they had spelled out. They blasted through their scheduled Friday adjournment dates because they didn't have a budget. The House went home Saturday night. The Senate came back Sunday, and they were in until, late, probably 10:30, 11 o'clock before I got out of the Capitol. Then they were off Monday. So I think everybody wanted to be off Monday. Hopefully you enjoyed your Memorial Day. I was trying to catch up on some sleep and some yard work, but it's back at it today with the House coming back into session to finish up the budget. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about a measure that passed the General Assembly about carbon capture pipelines and hear some passionate speeches from those who oppose the move. So that's on the way as well. And at some point later on this morning, doubt we'll be able to catch it live because I got to get out of here very soon. But the U.S. Supreme Court is going to be releasing their orders list today. So we may touch on that as well. And that's going to be happening at about 8:30 our time when they release the orders that could include whether or not they're going to take Illinois gun ban cases on preliminary issues. So stay tuned. That's on the way here with Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. All right. House back at it today after the Senate passed a budget late Sunday, and it's the most expensive state budget for Illinois taxpayers, increasing taxes by about $1 billion, and it includes $900 million in taxpayer funds for non-citizen migrants. Still don't have the deal finalized, though. Expecting that to happen throughout this week. So welcome back. It is Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and head over to thecentersquare.com. It's where I find myself full-time covering state government, where you can see all the stories you need to know about, including the legislature staying late to pass a budget. They were scheduled to adjourn Friday. And that didn't happen. They went ahead and carried through on Saturday, thinking that a budget deal would come together. Again, a budget deal was proposed, but it had to make it through the General Assembly in the proper fashion. And the Senate stayed late into Sunday after the House sent their members home for the weekend. So they went home for the holiday, but the Illinois House expected back to pass a state spending plan. It's the largest state spending plan in state history. Let's just take a look at some of the conversation there was on the Senate floor when this thing passed late Sunday. So they advanced the largest spending plan in state history to the Illinois House. And you'll see this article at thecentersquare.com. Illinois taxpayers still waiting on the state legislature to complete a $53 billion spending plan for the next fiscal year, the largest in state history. Without a spending plan advancing, the House adjourned late Saturday for the holiday weekend. House Speaker Chris Welch on Saturday said the House and Senate are very close to an agreement on final budget. But procedurally, the earliest an agreement could pass both chambers is next week. That's this week, to let members and staff rest and spend time with family. We're adjourning for the holiday weekend, and we'll return to complete this work, and they return today. So the Illinois House is in session. But the Senate, They stayed in the Capitol all throughout the weekend. They were there on Saturday late, and then they were there on Sunday. Senators discussed around $1 billion in new tax hikes to cover the cost of increased spending, sponsored by Democrats. Yet State Senator Chapin Rose say the majority party cannot stop overspending, noting that since Governor J.B. Pritzker's taken office, spending has gone up $13 billion under his watch. And if you look at some of the historical data of state budgets, in fiscal year 2019, the state spent around $36.4 billion in state taxpayer funds. The proposed plan for the fiscal year that begins July 1st, more than $53 billion. Considering total taxpayer spending, and this is what's interesting, I don't think a lot of people necessarily realize this, $53 billion is just going to be from state taxpayer funds. But the state of Illinois, as all states do, they get a bunch of money from the federal government, from federal taxpayers. And when you look at those numbers, you can see just how much Illinois ultimately costs taxpayers. So the proposed plan, considering total taxpayer spending compared to 2019, when you included the federal funds with the $36.4 billion in 2019 of state funds, add in federal funds, it was a total of $71.8 billion for Illinois. For fiscal year 25, the total spending, including those federal tax dollars, $124.6 billion. So you're essentially doubling almost in total taxpayer spending, not just state dollars, but including federal dollars, on the state of Illinois. It's a lot of money. Rose said that now that the state's spending this much, they're forced to raise taxes on people in Illinois. And what are they paying for? They're paying for non-citizen migrants to come here. Now, among the spending is nearly $1 billion of taxpayer funds for non-citizen migrants. Around $629 million will be for non-citizen health care. $182 million will be for services directly for migrants, and $160 million for welcoming centers. And you calculate all that up, and it's well over $900 million. Now, to pay for that, there's about $1 billion in tax increases, including $526 million by capping business-let operating losses, $200 million for a tiered sports betting company tax. And there was a plan to legalize ground sparklers and tax those at an additional 3% on top of the 6.25% sales tax, but apparently that was removed from the final plan. So no ground sparklers for the 4th of July holiday. The revenue plan also includes a slew of tax incentives, including tax incentives to hire local journalists. This is interesting and I think worth more debate, but it ultimately is advancing to allow for local media outlets to get a $15,000 tax credit for hiring local journalists to cover local governments. And if it's a new position, they could get $10,000 in a tax credit. But some critics say that this should not be happening. Government shouldn't define what journalism is, let alone journalists who are supposed to be kind of an adversarial relationship with government shouldn't be getting, government subsidies to this degree. But regardless, that measure is advancing. Another tax incentive that was in there to essentially allow for the hiring of ex-felons. But they're renaming ex-felons in this to returning citizens, I think it is. I'll have to double check what the actual language in there is, but for the current fiscal year, I think it's like $1,500 tax credit, and then in the next calendar year, it would be upwards to $7,500 in a tax credit for hiring ex-felons. But there's also tax incentives for the REV program, the Reimagining Energy and Vehicles, the EDGE tax credit program, but there was no discussion on restoring the Invest in Kids school choice scholarship program. So that's all part of the package as well. On the spending side, a bonding authority bill that's separate from the budget also raised red flags. One thing in particular that Senator Rose saw was that it increases spending by about $700 million for capital projects. That's in addition to what's in the bonding authority, and $900 million for the Illinois Department of Corrections to demolish the Stateville and Logan correctional facilities, as well as $500 million for the governor's quantum computing initiative. Other things as part of the budgets, you've got the budget implementation bill. And really what that is, the budget's the line item. The BIMP, the budget implementation bill, is kind of the enabling language that allows for funds to be shifted here and there, but that acts as a companion measure to the line item budget, with various different transfers and tax incentives spelled out in there. But it also gives the Pritzker administration the ability to shift up to 4% of budgeted spending within an agency on things like personnel services, travel, late interest penalties, lump sum operations, among other things. So again, just an overview of some of what the budget's looking like when you get to the details here. But with nearly $1 billion in tax increases, you've got over $900 million in funds that are going to be set up for the non-citizen migrants, and all of this coming together as they prepare to get it across the finish line, with the House returning today to the state capitol. So we'll do what we can to cover that for you. And again, go to thecentersquare.com, thecentersquare.com, where you can keep updated on the very latest of what's going on at the Illinois State House. All right, so check that out. It is Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay tuned. We'll touch base on more of what happens here in Illinois state government. Appreciate you guys. The issue of carbon pipelines has been pretty controversial for the past couple of years here in Illinois, and the state legislature has advanced a measure that would regulate carbon pipelines and carbon sequestration. It's a technology that environmentalists say is going to help with the, quote, climate crisis. But opponents say it could be a dangerous proposition, as carbon dioxide is a toxic fume that, if it's put into pipelines and bursts, well, you could have all kinds of problems. But a measure advancing at the State House would essentially allow for carbon pipelines to be regulated and move forward. So let's go ahead and check this out as we prepare for more action at the Illinois General Assembly. But this measure has advanced. Again, go to thecentersquare.com. It is Bishop on Air, hanging out with you. My full-time gig has me as associate editor for Illinois at the Center Square. The measure regulating carbon capture pipelines passes Illinois General Assembly, and Governor J.B. Pritzker has indicated he will sign it. But some concerns. The Mahomet Aquifer may have a carbon pipeline drill right above it if Senate Bill 1289 is enacted by the governor. And the governor has released a statement after this passed, saying that he would support this. But let's go through this. Legislators concerned drinking water could be compromised if there's a pipeline rupture. The bill's sponsor said that there are additional steps that would help prevent that. But Senate Bill 1289, now amended, seeks to allow the Illinois Commerce Commission to create and approve carbon sequestration pipelines. What is carbon sequestration? Essentially what it does is you have, say, an ethanol plant that there's a lot of carbon emissions. They collect those carbon emissions, they have it as a gas condensed down to a liquid, and then they pipe those carbon emissions off to somewhere to store it. Those carbon emissions can be apparently piped into the ground, like, 3,000 feet down, and Illinois has been identified as a prime place to sequester carbon underground because of the rock formations that those with more knowledge than I have on this say will help, preserve that carbon down there and make it into a solid. For what purposes? Well, you've got individuals who say we got a climate crisis and it's man-made and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is bad. Others saying that, wait a second, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is what plants live off of. State Representative Chris Miller in the State House on, was this Friday or Saturday? It might have been Friday. Here he is talking a bit about carbon sequestration and his, skepticism of the concern that people have about carbon sequestration.
Speaker, I think that one of the things that I have done over the last 50 years is I'm a farmer and I raise cattle. And when we're raising cattle, I raise a lot of bulls. And after listening to all this stuff, my old BS meter's going ding, 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 ding. Because what we're seeing here is a myth about climate change.
So he goes on to talk about, is it climate change? Is it, a climate crisis? Is it global warming? We've heard that term change quite a bit. And he pushed back on this, talking about how getting rid of carbon would hurt green things and that he has actually planted 15,000 or million or whatever carbon capturing plants, soybeans, corn, plants, green things. So he pushed back on that. And despite that pushback, the sponsors of the bill said, well, listen, what this bill does is it has a 2-year-long moratorium on the creation of carbon capture transport pipelines. And they say that that's good because we're going to wait for the federal government to finish their regulatory process on this, take 2 years possibly, and then they can move forward with this. And the various large employer associations say that this is good for jobs and innovation and the like. So they're gonna be moving forward with this carbon sequestration, especially after it was brought up in the Illinois Senate. But passions also in the Illinois Senate. They boiled over as well. And State Senator Chapin Rose, a Republican from Mahomet, he talked about a family that is, an entire area that's still struggling with their water after he says the state failed to oversee a natural gas pipeline that ruptured and contaminated the water supply there. And he says that, they've tried to fix this with trying to get things appropriated in the state budget, but the money has not been sent to rectify this. And he worries that if this continues with a carbon capture system and drilling above the Mahomet aquifer, it could lead to even more damage. And he got pretty passionate on the Senate floor. And I believe that this was Saturday or Sunday. My entire weekend, again, I put in like a week's worth of work in just 2 days with myself and some of my team monitoring all of this. But here's Senator Rose on the Senate floor pushing back on the carbon sequestration measure.
This isn't funny. This is not funny. The Eisenmans have been living like this for over half a decade now. Where's Governor Pritzker? Oh, we all voted on a budget 5 years ago to bring water from Mahomet, from the Sangamon Valley Public Water District, up Route 47 to get these people water. He still hasn't funded it. I voted for that stupid bill to get these people clean water, and 6 damn years later, they don't have their water. And the next year comes along again, regional capital. Well, we don't have enough regional capital to do the whole project, so let's do phase 1 and at least get the Eisenmans their water. That's not funded either. So I don't want to hear a damn thing from anybody about cleaning up the environment. I'm sorry, and I apologize, and I shouldn't have said that. But I don't want to hear a damn thing from anybody about cleaning up the environment when these people can't drink their water.
So again, very frustrated. You can hear it in his voice. Dropping a swear word on the Senate floor, which doesn't really happen much. And when you get into these debates, sometimes you do get that. And That takes a lot of attention away from the issues. But regardless, that's a big issue that is advancing again at the Illinois State House, a measure to essentially allow for the regulation of carbon capture and pipelines. But what was interesting, this entire situation has led to associations in the proponents and the opponents that you don't necessarily get. For the proponents, you've got those who support it saying, like the Illinois Manufacturers Association, this is going to create jobs. This is going to help out with, trying to capture dirty carbon and store it somewhere. And you've got environmentalists joining with those business groups saying, yes, we need to do what we can to attack the climate crisis. But those who oppose, there's also environmentalist groups saying that we can't have these pipelines with toxic fumes pushing through close to cities because even if it's a small, village, if this pipeline ruptures, you've got noxious CO2 gas that can essentially asphyxiate you. And not just asphyxiate you, it could also lead to internal combustion engines not being able to work, so emergency crews wouldn't be able to get in there to assist. So you've got environmentalist groups opposing it as well, but also those opposing it are private property rights groups like farmers saying that they don't want to have their property taken away for these types of projects. And there was one bill that was proposed that the Illinois Farm Bureau was in support of, but this is not that bill. This is a totally different bill. And Bill Bodine from the Illinois Farm Bureau, he told a committee that Senate Bill 1289, which ultimately did pass, it continues to authorize the use of eminent domain for carbon capture pipelines. Our policy also supports requiring developers of carbon pipelines and storage projects to demonstrate progress securing easements from willing landowners prior to the ICC's approval of a pipeline project. This would help ensure the developers of these projects are negotiating in good faith. This bill includes no such requirement. So again, pushback. He says the original bill dealt with that in particular, but moving forward, SB 1289 is a pipeline bill, he said. And carbon sequestration is one thing, carbon pipelines are another. So clearly, this is something that is advancing, and the governor has put out a statement saying that he will be signing this. And here's what he had to say. In that statement from day one, I've prioritized transforming Illinois into a global leader in the fight against climate change. In partnership with the General Assembly, Illinois now lays claim to some of the most ambitious and equitable climate and energy laws in the United States with the passage of Senate Bill 1289. And I'm proud to say we're building on that monumental progress by setting national standards, safety, and environmental standards around carbon capture and sequestration while bringing thousands of new jobs and billions of dollars in investment to Illinois. So carbon sequestration, that also passed the Illinois General Assembly, as has a whole bunch of stuff. But one thing we're still waiting on is that budget, and that's something that the Illinois House is returning today to take up. So we'll do what we can to keep you posted on all of that. It is Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and appreciate you guys being here each and every weekday morning as we keep you posted on what's going on in and around the Illinois General Assembly and elsewhere. All right. Have a great day. We'll see you soon. All right, that's all I got for you today, guys. Got to get out of here. And of course, follow me on X. Just search Bishop on Air, and you'll be able to find me updating things throughout the day. But I would also encourage you a little bit later on, probably in 15 minutes, you've got the U.S. Supreme Court that's going to be releasing some orders today. And will they include the challenge to the state's gun ban? Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. And obviously, we'll talk about that tomorrow if indeed it does drop or it doesn't drop. But we've also got the Southern District of Illinois Federal Court moving forward on the merits of the gun ban. So we'll do what we can to keep you updated there as well. Have a great day. We'll see you back here tomorrow with Bishop on Air.